we will definitely lose hundreds of millions of jobs or hundreds of millions of tasks. No question about that.
Wouldn't we end up in the place where humans are just going to be in the way?
I believe there is still space for the same human being to be still engaged in that process, but maybe at a different, higher order.
Will we ever reach a moment where that's possible?
We can actually use that human energy, that workforce, to produce and be productive and create value, which maybe is going to go in a completely different direction. The current generation does not have the ability to engage so strongly, human to human, as they should, to be able to be equipped for the future. You got to recognize that something is happening which you got to act upon. The human brain evolutionally has just been trained to preserve energy. The current AI we see today really lacks the I, the intelligence aspect of it. What will the job of the future look like?
Antonio, thank you, man, for coming on the show. Welcome. I wanted for the listeners to get a little bit understanding of who is in front of me. I can tell that you are someone who is very much success-driven, someone who strives to have positive output from your actions. I'm sure you always strive to have like a large impact in whatever you're doing, and you worked on so many different projects and succeeded in so many different things. But what would you say are the most proud things that you've achieved, something that you're most proud of? What are a few of them, so people understand who you are and what type of things you worked on?
Sure. First of all, thanks a lot for having me. I think it's great. And your podcast is great. I've been watching it. I think for me, it's really twofold. One is I'm very, very proud of course, some of the business and technical achievements I had. Yeah. I've been working on some amazing projects in the deep tech area, things like autonomous cars and autonomous air vehicles. Yeah. Also other software and AI solutions I've been working on. My business success, I've been kind of building and selling my first business when I was 22. Nice. But I think one thing I'm mostly proud of is what I've done out of myself, right? Because I think you have to kind of build yourself, invest in yourself, build yourself to then become a better person to also be able to help other people around you. So I think one thing which I'm mostly proud of is how I got out of the whole situation, how I grew up, and then the person who I become, aiming more and more to become better every day, but really be able to help the people around me, and create opportunities. So that's what I'm quite proud of.
What kind of situations are you talking about? Like you said, to come out of difficult situations.
Yeah, I mean, having immigrated to Germany when I was 1.5, 2 years old, my family really didn't have much to show for, right? I grew up basically in social welfare, unemployment money, and getting my head out of that situation, not accepting the status quo, even though my parents are really hardworking people, but their mindset was geared towards a certain direction, which was basically presented and given to them. But very, very early in my life, I didn't want to accept that status quo. So getting myself out of that situation, choosing the right path ultimately, making a lot of experiences on the way, but choosing the right path ultimately is something which I'm very proud of. And having been able to turn things around to get where I am right now is something which is which hopefully will inspire a lot of people, that they can do the same thing.
No, I think this is good. Yeah. So for the most part, before you came on the show, I was kind of reflecting, and before we did like a pre-interview conversation to get to know each other a little bit more, I was trying to understand what would be almost like what is the title of the conversation that I want to have before even having the conversation. And I think it's somewhere around you being an expert in AI and have so much experience, and working on dissertation around using AI as a collaborator and not as a replacement or as automating your job away, but using it as like a partner in whatever you're doing. So I think that's kind of the main theme of the conversation, if you don't mind, we kind of stick around there. Why don't you pose like the main idea of that dissertation that you're working on, and then we'll dive deeper into the subtopics around that.
Sure. I think the main inspiration behind that came from the fact that as humanity and society, we don't really seem to make the progress which we should do with all the technology and all the tools and all the resources around us. Mm-hmm. That's really something which it was bothering me. Mm-hmm. When I think about human capabilities and human capacity, and I think about, what I've achieved personally and what some of the people which I admire have achieved, I really see that potential in every human being. But we are not really able to translate that in something more tangible.
Yeah.
And that was really the inspiration across the board in my career and the way I look at life. Mm-hmm. I've been at a very early stage trying to advise and coach people around me. I'm still the go-to person in all my family and friends to go and get some advice on. But I was always wondering, why are we not making that progress, which we should do with everything around us? Yeah. So the inspiration around my thesis and my doctorate is really, how can we increase value creation, that's both tangible and intangible value, by measuring productivity. So how can we increase productivity, which then ultimately translates in value creation, in both economic factors such as GDP for entire nations, or labor productivity and total factor labor productivity for companies and organizations. Why is that not continue to increase? Because we have so much resources around us. And the reality is, in the Western countries, it's stagnating, if not decreasing, over the last decade. So that was something which I tried to understand a little bit better. So the question which I was imposing is to say, how can this significant technology such as artificial intelligence hopefully turn it around? Yeah. And we use this technology to really advance humanity. And one of the measures is productivity. It's obviously not the only measure. There are many, many other things we should and measure really. But productivity was one of the things I'm looking at.
And how would you define productivity?
So productivity, kind of scientifically to measure it, is basically that labor productivity. Yeah. So an individual worker, what is the output, measurable output of that worker? And then total factor productivity is when you scale it up, look at an organization and look at what is this organization producing in terms of value. Now what is important is value is not only financial, which is tangible value, but value is also intangible value. So intangible value is things which you maybe cannot directly measure. The innovation power of a company or a country. It's about the perception which my customers or my employees have about me. So that it's difficult to measure. There are scientific measures around that, and I'm using that in my doctorate as well. But productivity is really the one measure which I'm putting in place right now. To see how does that change with artificial intelligence compared to all the technology we just come from. I mean, we have the smartphone, we have, everybody has a laptop these days and, all these things, but they don't really seem to increase productivity. In fact, it's falling. So something isn't right there.
To me, I see productivity as so you have certain resources and you have certain process to convert resources into something else, and the productivity is the speed at which you do that. The more productive you are, the faster that whole process becomes. And then then what is efficiency? How would you define efficiency? Because that's also related, not exactly the same, but related. What's your kind of definition, so we're on the same ground?
So absolutely, as you said, that would be productivity, the amount of output you can produce with certain resources in a given time. Efficiency would be, of course, how efficient are you with the time and the resources given to you to maximize the output. So the more output you can create with less time and less resources, that will be efficiency.
And right, so humans so far been involved in most of the activity that result in productive things, and then only now we're starting to have AI agents and robots that are starting to participate in the economy of productivity in a way, right? And I was thinking about, if we extrapolate the notion of increasing productivity, wouldn't we end up in the place where humans are just going to be in the way? Basically, the most productive system is the one that has the least amount of unpredictable things in it. So you basically automate and optimize and streamline all of these steps of the process so that you can maximize the productivity.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going back to what is value. So the way I'm defining value as kind of tangible and intangible value, what are we producing?
Mm.
How productive are we to go and produce that value? That's what really counts. So some of the things we're measuring today, they may be irrelevant into the future. They may be just hygiene factors. We are wasting, precious human resources
Yeah.
and time on them, which we should literally just automate.
Yeah.
Right? But then we can actually use that human energy, that workforce, to produce and be productive and create value, which maybe is going to go in a completely different direction. Social value, right? It's part of value creation process.
Yeah.
You got to be productive to turn the resources and time into something.
Yeah.
Well, why is it not more going towards those intangible value creators? And some of the things we can automate, let's just automate them. So we would really shift the attention over of being productive to something which is maybe more valuable.
Yeah. And would you then agree that the maximum productivity of tangible things, by definition, should remove all humans? You spoke about tangible and intangible. I understand about the intangible, that you can't automate a lot of the things. It's like a soft domain. It's a wiggly world, right? It's not precise. But the physical world is pretty precise. And in order for us to get the most amount of productivity and efficiency, we have to kind of like remove all the humans from it,
So I believe there are definitely certain things where you can remove the human from.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about trading, the maximum trading is everything is fully automated. There's very little humans involved in that. But the attention has moved towards other tasks, which are still relevant within the discipline of trading, right? The ability of humans to articulate this now, the ability to create that human connection, that trust. So maybe the process of the trading itself has been fully automated. The system can do billions and billions of decisions and analytical decision points through data, but then you still need the human to interact with. So that human in the loop aspect of that productivity and value creation still to create economic output is still relevant. So I think the attention will just shift and you won't need to, be involved so much in those low level activities anymore. But you would now go towards a more higher order problem statement.
Over time, we've been kind of peeling the onion of what we thought is a innately human activity is. And especially now it's been accelerated. The peeling of the onion been accelerating because AI is able to do more and more things that we thought only humans are able to do. And that process is actually a very useful one because it brings us closer and closer to what the essence of who we truly are. Stripping away all of the fluff that we thought, we are that too, but we're not. And this experience, a fully simulated one, the delta would be something that maybe the function that maybe even atrophied, something that, let's say, we connect on the emotional level or on an energetic level, that we don't have words for it to describe it, just because in the modern society that we're living in, we're not accounting for that, so we don't even have words to elaborate on that, right? But the more we expose ourselves to that kind of delta, the more immersive experiences we will put ourselves in, and we will still notice like there's still something off, and that's still something off. It gives us more awareness to our true essence, like our true abilities of connecting to humans on the energetic, on the spiritual level, on the emotional level.
Yes, I would fully agree with that. In fact, I've been in my career a lot in this intersection between the virtual world and the real world, with one of the companies in more of the military defense space. We've been doing a lot of virtual simulations of scenarios, training and development of employees and people for engineering purposes, fixing a pipe, changing something. Well, as much as I believe, yes, you can, put some virtual pressure on a pipe to fix it, but actually holding the pipe in real world in your hand in a situation where it's cold or warm or, slippery or whatever is a totally different experience.
The physical reality has consequences.
Exactly. And so the virtual world has its benefits to a certain degree where you can learn the basics,
right?
But then you have to fairly quickly transition into the real world and see what are the consequences of that digital piece you just developed on the real world. And the other factor is evolutionary. We are built the way we are built for a reason. And trying to fundamentally change that also presents its own challenges. I'll give you an example. This whole Minority Report approach of, you put, you just have goggles on and you work around. We did that with a company which is a port authority. And one of the companies I worked with, we basically equipped the people who basically coordinate all these hundreds and thousands of ships, large container ships coming into the port.
Like a control center that you would...
like a control center where you sit in and, you basically look at your monitor. And they had 6 monitors, each one of them, but about 15 of them. And it was highly trained people to look at these 6 monitors, and everybody was their little, domain was in that huge port. It was an Asian port, one of the most busy ports, actually. And they were able to navigate these vessels, these ships, these container ships, these tankers around this port and making sure they don't collide with each other. Now we saw, and they wanted to see how would that, approach around Minority Report work for them. So we gave them the technology, which worked perfectly in real time, navigating all these vessels and ships around, put the glasses on, and we gave them, the technology to move their hands around. What happened was, after 15 minutes, they had shoulder pain, they had neck pain. We evolutionary, we were not meant up for that. We are, more the ergonomic side of things kick in, and they were really tired. They're like, wow, actually, I don't think I can do that. So we had to cancel that project. Now you could argue and say, well, then you could put some other equipment in place to make it happen. But I think we're trying to kind of, create a problem which we maybe don't even have. And maybe this is where technology and AI is meant to take that away, take that off that task. Try to do the routing, the navigation, which can be automated with the system, still have a human in the loop, but that human maybe does other tasks, does other human-to-human engagements and discussions, right? So I believe that is a much more likely scenario, which we will see in the next 15, 20 years, than something which is going to completely wipe out the human and actually just rely on artificial intelligence and digital systems to solve problems.
Right. Yeah. And so now that's a perfect segue to job market in the future. A lot of people are concerned that a lot of jobs are going away. There are all kinds of studies where they would survey employees from different companies and to get their the total kind of like opinion of the masses of like, do they think that their job is going to be automated away? And a big majority of people say, yes, I definitely see that this job is going away. And so a lot of people are concerned about that. What's your view on jobs, future jobs market?
We will definitely lose hundreds of millions of jobs or hundreds of millions of tasks. No question about that. And there will be a big gap between those who can really pivot and transition into this new world versus those who cannot for many, many reasons. It's also about giving access to everybody for that, right? That's what is one of my priorities, making sure the technology is accessible. And technology is also usable. But we will, with no doubt, lose hundreds of millions of jobs. But then you look at everything technology has created in its last technological revolutions, right? The industrial revolutions, which we have seen over the last decades, from the steam engine to electricity to the assembly line to compute,
Mm-hmm.
all the way now where you have all these Internet of Things devices connected, you have all the data and you have all the compute power, which leads to artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
In all these phases, there were people who said we will lose everything, but then actually we created more out of it. Another good example is when you look at the smartphone. The smartphone didn't exist in the form you have it today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's argue pre the iPhone. Well, actually, I was one of the few people who owned the Sony Ericsson P900, which was almost like a smartphone. You know, you had a little touch screen with a little pin you could play around with, but I also had the tabs. That was quite cool, very limited. I could program it in some way, put some software on it. But really, since we have the iPhone, we were able to create an industry which now serves hundreds of millions of jobs. Because it's not only that device, it's the app store, which is trillions of dollars worth of commerce running through it, with all the apps which are developed by app developers, full stack development, the infrastructure. So if you think about it, we have created hundreds of millions of jobs over the last 20, 25 years, which did not exist before. So with artificial intelligence, we will, if we do it right, and that's the job of industry leaders, thought leaders, of course, also politicians in some shape or form. For example, what we have seen now in the United States is a great movement towards that, the AI action plan. But we really all have a responsibility to create what I call kind of a net positive outcome, where we use technology and the ability it gives to us to get rid of some, mundane, non-relevant activities and actually create more. So the idea is what some scientists and leading thought leaders and organizations think is we will lose around 400 million jobs, but we will create 800 million jobs. So that's kind of the general notion. And obviously those jobs will be different. I believe, again, we will lose a lot of things which can be automated, which are relevant. I believe we will move more towards human-to-human connection. So the human element will be very, very important in this. And therefore, some of the jobs and the way we engage with each other will change. That's where I'm worried that the current generation does not have the ability to engage so strongly, human-to-human, as they should. To be able to be equipped for the future. So that's an element which I think we have to work all together in to teach them these skills so that they not only have tech-savvy skills at hand, but they also have skills which allow them to engage as humans.
Yeah, I agree with you that every new technology brings so many new, not expected, unpredictable good and bad things. And with, as you said, invention of like iPhone or that whole industry, no one really could anticipate that it will create this massive industry of apps and experiences and the whole ecosystem of different things. But you can argue that now with AI, it's a different story because any cognitive ability, AI will, in the very near future, will be able to do it better than humans. Anything that could be done digitally, I suspect that AI will be able to do better than humans. How can we make sure that we're still creating more, or like you said, oh, a lot more jobs are going to be created. What kind of jobs? If any kind of like cognitive job, most likely going to be taken over by AI. What other types of job apart from, let's say, midwives and those who are doing like the physical experiences, potentially like roofers and other people who really need to be physically present, but that's not the majority of jobs, if I would suspect. The majority of jobs are in like the soft service business that is most likely could be done remotely, and I would suspect that most jobs that could be done remotely today could be automated like by AI. Wouldn't you say that?
So, first of all, the current AI we see today really lacks the intelligence aspect of it. When you look at human level intelligence, I mean, everything you see today is what we call narrow AI.
Mm.
It's there for a certain purpose.
Right.
And it maybe does that very, very well,
Mm-hmm.
given the rules of engagement we defined, right? But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
The AI we have today will not be able to cross domains.
Sure.
So if you think about even large language models, right? A large language model is very, very simply speaking, the ability of the compute to predict the next word in that sequence, which makes the most sense. And, the one which has the highest probability based on everything it has learned is going to be the word which it will put in place. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very simple way to look at how we use language to articulate or solve problems. It just knows that, hey, I've seen this many, 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 many times before. Right. It's a very likelihood that this word will fit very well in this given context. Yeah. But the system will not by itself be able to go across domains and connect the dots between problem A and problem B to say, hey, maybe you want to think about something else. So that's super important to take into account.
But that's where we are today.
That's where we are today. Exactly.
There are no evidence that that's where we're going to end up in 5 years,
Right. I think it will take more than 5 years for sure, because what we call kind of, artificial general intelligence, the ability of artificial intelligence and systems to really be human-like, think like humans is still far away in that sense. I believe more than 5 years. We will be able to get close to it because we start to connect the dots across domains and we actually evolving technology and AI across multiple domains. So you will be able to connect the dots, but there is still the glue missing in between, which I believe humans have to be involved to close that, right? That's the kind of the human in the loop approach. Now let's fast forward. So your question is really relevant. What's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years? Yeah. Well, the answer is we don't know. So there was a prediction a couple of years ago that 65% of all the primary school children who are currently going through that, they will have jobs which we don't even know they exist. So I believe nobody will be able to answer that question. What will the job of the future look like? Right. We know today that social media is a job, is a career. There is a whole industry of millions of people who work in that industry, creating content, driving content, managing content, publishing content. That's now an industry that didn't exist in this digital form just a couple of years ago, right? You had just print media, maybe you had a TV and stuff. So I think there is a lot of things. If somebody would say, hey, I make my money using social media or creating content, we would say, well, what is that? Are you a writer? You're an editor, right? It's something completely different. Different mechanisms, different rules, different KPIs, different way value is being measured. So ultimately, I think the answer is we don't know. But I hope it will be something more exciting than what we have today, right? What we educate ourselves and the young people about today is still Stone Age, is from the industrial times. It has nothing to do with what I hope the future will look like for humanity, where actually we are really trying to be, multiplanetary and really be able to address a couple of challenges and problems which are really going to create value and give us joy.
Yeah, and meaning. And speaking of meaning, how would you define what is meaningful? Like, what, generally speaking, what do we consider meaningful?
I think for every individual, life has a different meaning. Yeah. The things you do, they have a different meaning for you. Maybe it's something very, very personal to you and your ego. Maybe it's something which you just love to see in other people around you. Maybe you have a very, wide view of things and you really go and think about society and everything. So I think the word meaning for me just means I can be of service, right? I can be of service to my higher self, and I can be of service to other people to achieve their higher selves. That's what I derive meaning from. I mean, I have my fair share of, doing mistakes or not behaving, the way I should do in certain situations. But then you learn from it, you grow from it, you derive meaning from what you have done in a good or bad way. And then you translate that in something which creates value. Yeah. And that constant strive for creating value is what gives me the meaning. And I'm not so much looking anymore for these external validations, even though I love to have a good time, of course. but that's not something which derives meaning or value to me. So the more and more I think about, what is value for me, what is meaning for me, I look more inwards and also think about how my actions maybe make other people around me feel. That's the way I start to derive meaning from, if this makes sense.
Yeah, it resonates with me. What comes up for me is meaning involves also impact on other people. Like if you are by yourself in the room, it's harder to create a meaningful experience versus you are in the community of people and you're bringing value to them. That's a more meaningful experience. Would you say that?
I think so, yeah. And again, I think you have to derive meaning from different tasks you do,
Yeah,
right? Not everything has the same meaning. Not everything I do every day
of course.
will, lead me towards that higher purpose and that value creation.
Yeah.
A lot of things I gotta do, but they have a different meaning. And then I interact with different people. Maybe for them it derives a different meaning too.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a one thing you do ultimately as a straight line.
Yeah.
You got to derive meaning from a lot of things you do for the stakeholder you have. Not only people, also society and nature and the physical things around you. It derives meaning, right? And I think that's what you got to take into account without being too spiritual about it. Because ultimately we got to translate what we do in this life into also something tangible, which can be measured. We can't all live in that spiritual realm. But that's the way I would look at it. So it's case by case. You got to derive meaning from everything you do. But ideally, hopefully it accumulates all towards a kind of a higher purpose you have for yourself and the meaning you derive from that in that moment as well.
It's interesting that you said not to go too deep into the spiritual when searching for meaning. And the way I see it, as I mentioned about the evolution and us going into like more subtle layers of reality. And I would say if you just draw a line through evolution in the trajectory of moving further and further away from handling matter, on the other end is spirituality, is like that's the direction we're almost heading, where as we're evolving we're becoming more and more spiritual, and that's where the meaning is shifting away from we used to really appreciate the cathedrals, and we would just spend, as like a human species, we would spend so much effort and time and energy into building pyramids and cathedrals because that's where we would derive a lot of meaning. And now we don't really do that anymore because I feel like the meaning shifted into non-physical. We're finding meaning in other things, or maybe we don't find meaning in anything, or maybe it just dissipates and it just goes away or something like that. But it does feel like it's a trajectory into a non-physical thing that gives us meaning, and the spirituality could be that thing that we're moving towards.
Depends really where we're coming from, where we're moving towards, I feel. I think we have moved away, like you said, from that being present in the moment, for sure. I think we moved away from our connection to nature. So it really depends on where we're coming from as, in this life, right?
Yeah.
And where we're trying to strive towards. I find a lot of pleasure connecting to nature. And I've always been that way. That's why I love, Switzerland, but I also love the beach at Miami, in Miami Beach, because that gives me pleasure. I connect a lot with nature. I just love to go hiking in the mountains and the greens. Gives me a lot of pleasure. I work for a, car company which produced these off-road SUVs, and every weekend I was off-road in UK when I was in England. I was every weekend off-road. People knew that. Okay, so where is Antonio? Well, he's he's in the Cotswolds. He's kind of walking around, because that was just gave me pleasure. So I think, like you said, we're moving away from this. So the question is really, are we moving towards becoming a higher being, maybe connecting in a different way with spirituality, or are we still deriving meaning and spirituality from maybe nature and the things around us? And I think that's part of the challenge. Is we have created a society and individuals and humans, especially I would argue some of the younger generation more than the older generations, which are completely disconnected from nature. I mean, I saw some studies that some children don't even know the difference between real fruit and then a lollipop, a bonbon, if like one. They don't know. They think, oh no, that's pineapple. That's not pineapple. No, that's a real pineapple. Or no, that's watermelon. That's not watermelon. Well, that's the real fruit.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I see the danger, that we have created, that generation. We created human beings which are disconnected from something which they could actually derive meaning and spirituality to connect to from. And it's almost like they're primed towards something which is supposed to keep them in the box. Whereas I always was the person who tried to get out of the box. So I always tried to not be in the box and try to think about, why is there a box and why do I have to fit into this?
Right.
So I by nature had not so much that problem that I divorced myself, disconnected from it. But I think society is moving towards that, and that's quite a dangerous situation to be in.
For those who are maybe somewhat concerned about the future of AI replacing jobs and them losing job or them losing meaning in what they're doing, what advice would you give them?
First of all, it's really about recognition. You got to recognize that something is happening, which you got to act upon. That's always the first state of mind you have to have. Because without the recognition, without the sense of urgency, you will never be able to take action. The brain is so good in preserving energy and automating everything that you will just continue what you do because that feels right. That's comfortable. That's what the human brain does. The human brain evolutionally has just been trained to preserve energy. That's what it does. Now it's uncomfortable to then say something is changing here. And what is changing is not just going to be a trend that's actually going to preserve over time. So first of all, we got to recognize it. Second of all, we have to derive meaning from that. So what does it mean for me? Or what does it mean for the people I'm serving? What does it mean for my family? Once you derive meaning from it, then you can actually translate that into tangible actions. Because then I know, why am I doing this? What is the impact if I maybe don't do this? And what can I do to actually mitigate that risk? It's very simple. Right. And every human being does that day to day, even with normal situations, right? You always look at the situation, you try to make sense out of it, then you make a meaning of it, then you translate that in an action. It could be a snake on the ground, could be a car coming towards you, or could be this,
makes sense,
artificial intelligent thing which everybody now is confronted with. So I think that's the first step. The second thing is then education. Just engage in the conversation. Try to read some papers. I mean, by all love to social media and the technology, I don't think just listening to a podcast or just looking at Instagram or Google or even, engaging with things like these ChatGPTs on the highest level of conversation will give you the answer. But actually downloading an application or just going software as a service in the browser and just hacking around. How does that work? These days people can create full stack applications by just going into the browser and saying, that's what I would like to do.
Right.
Well, it's not going to be perfect. It's 80%, but then you can start playing around with it. But that will give people, it will take away the fear because it's not rocket science. I mean, I studied computer science with artificial intelligence, distributed systems at its core. And I can say it's learnable.
Right.
Some people have a different skill when it comes to really translating that into, products and services, which are highly scalable, but everybody should be able to look at their own situation. What am I doing? How is this going to help me to live a better life, to create more value, and maybe solve some problems? So that would be the step. And once you educate yourself, you know how to use it, then you can actually translate this into something meaningful for you day to day. And it involves digital. It involves, a laptop, a smartphone, and, something which connects you to that digital world, because AI is digital. But I think we are there now. I mean, almost every human being in some shape or form is connected to the internet, has a smartphone. Even the Buddhists who live somewhere in a monastery, they have smartphones, right? They have social media and they connect. So I don't think that's so much of a barrier. But engaging with that, I would say, is the first thing you got to do
Yeah.
to understand it.
Yeah, I think also an important one is to be able to communicate. So we all have ideas in our brain or insights that come through, and those who are able to communicate them and spill them out into the world through language, either the written language or vocal, just speaking to it. I think those have a higher probability of succeeding in the world, because if you're able to communicate something new, let's say a new insight that comes through, then that's the bridge that you're building with the creative part of you, the intuitive part of you, and it's the channel that flows into this physical domain. And I think AI is becoming so good at picking up on the intent. You don't even, I feel like in the future, you don't even have to be super precise with language. It will still pick up on the core intent of what is coming through. So I think the intuition and creative thinking and speaking through your higher mind is going to be a very important skill that all humans will have to use. Because if you can create an app in an instant just by giving one prompt, anyone can do it. But what will differentiate those who are recognized for their achievements, or those who don't, are the ones who are able to bring like more complex systems and structures into the physical domain through their intention, through their like understanding of bigger things, and being able to bring that in here, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the technology will democratize a lot of access and your ability to kind of do it yourself, right? We see that already. I mean, today you can go to a do-it-yourself store and buy everything you need to build everything you want. Some things are more complex, right? People should stay away from that. Don't touch too much electricity and the water pipes. That's always end up in chaotic. So you have some professionals to do that. But a lot of things you can do yourself. And this will be the same situation. You will pick and choose the technology. You will be able to automate certain tasks, and especially certain workflows where you can just do it yourself. I mean, today there is no code languages. You just say, hey, I want to connect this app to this app, my calendar to this application, because I always miss to do a certain thing. And then the application will be developed, automatically deployed. You maybe have to still do some API integration manually, but even that is being done today in fully automated manner. So you can actually focus on a problem which you try to solve in the first place, which maybe the technology was just hindering you to achieve and to do. So I think that will be the case. We will democratize access to technology and problem solving, but then we will actually be able to maybe move as also society and human beings into a higher problem statement. We go in a higher order to maybe solve problems or address things which are a little bit more complex. So here I think the skill of thinking about problems as systems, connecting the dots, is going to be more of a skill, much more of a skill. But that's also something which is at least educated and communicated to the young generation. Singing across domains, from physics to chemistry to math to language to sports. Well, nobody does that. You just go to class, you learn the one or the other. You engage with somebody who is extremely smart in one domain, theoretical or physical or applied sciences. But then you even ask those experts, what is the meaning of that for another domain? And they struggle to explain that. No, this is the way it works on the theoretical level. But then the applied science person says, well, it's completely different in my world. So I think we need to develop more of that system thinking and that integrated product approach versus just thinking in silos and domains. And that will be a skill we have to really teach young people to do, which is very complicated, which is complex because it consumes today a lot of resources in the brain, which would be assigned to other tasks. And that's where maybe artificial intelligence will be able to offload the cognitive load. So certain things can be done, but then the human in the loop will still be able to address those more complex problems which appear in a system rather than in kind of the individual pieces level.
Awesome. Well, Love it. I love the diving deep into all of the topics like that. In closing, do you have any last remarks, summary notes, any ideas that you would like to share with people that you want them to know, maybe, or maybe how people can support what you're doing? Anything that you would like to share?
I think I would really say that, especially the younger generation, that should really be more curious. What I think across the board is missing is that curiosity, that ability to engage and deep dive in a topic and really let go of that surface level conversations. And that for me goes very deep, because when we go a little bit deeper, not only with this tech, but also as human beings, we start to connect with each other. So the ability to be curious for me is such an important skill. And that doesn't require a lot. It just means that you pay attention, you listen, and you try to understand what the other person or that technology or that task or that problem is trying to tell you, rather than trying to overwhelm that with your own opinion and what you think should happen in this moment. So curiosity is really something which I think is something everybody should develop. And secondly, I think the sense of urgency. I still feel we are procrastinating day in, day out. We spend a lot of time on things which are irrelevant. I fall into that category sometimes myself, but then I catch myself, or I look at signals around me, and then I try to kind of reduce my attention to things which don't serve me.
For sure.
But that sense of urgency, I feel like, is something which we all should have a heightened sense of urgency, because then we also don't sit around and just consume. We just move from being a consumer towards a producer. Because now you're curious, you try to understand how things work, you have a sense of urgency, so you keep acting. So we try to produce more value around us rather than just sit back and consume. And therefore we kind of numb out in society. So I think if I would leave anybody with an advice, is be curious and have a sense of urgency, act quickly, and that will already try to unlock a lot of opportunities around you, which young or old, it doesn't really matter. I think everybody has an opportunity to change things around in their lives and create some value.
Amazing, man. Great. Thank you again for coming and sharing your perspective, your wisdom. Thank you, listeners, whoever is still here with us. Thank you for sticking out all the way until the end. And I'll see you on the next episode. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.